If you love classic westerns, there's a good chance the War Wagon slipped onto your radar. Released in 1967 and starring two absolute legends, John Wayne and Kirk Douglas, this movie looks like a simple train robbery-style western on the surface. But once you dig deeper, you realize this film is packed with behind-the-scenes drama, clever casting choices, near disasters, quiet rivalries, and some surprisingly modern ideas hiding inside an old-school western shell. So today I'm breaking down 20 hidden facts about the War Wagon, the kind of stuff you won't hear unless you've gone deep into classic Hollywood history. Grab a coffee, settle in, and let's talk about one of the most underrated westerns of the 1960s. 1. John Wayne almost passed on the movie. Believe it or not, the War Wagon nearly happened without John Wayne. When a script first landed on his desk, Wayne wasn't immediately sold. The idea of a giant armored wagon rolling through hostile territory sounded more like a gimmick than a serious western. At that point in his career, Wayne was already extremely selective. He didn't want to repeat himself or look like he was doing a novelty act. What finally changed his mind was the character of Todd Jackson, a man wronged, quietly patient, and absolutely determined to get even. Wayne saw that Todd wasn't loud or flashy. He was calm, calculating, and dangerous in a subtle way. That restraint convinced Wayne this wasn't just another shoot-'em-up, it was something smarter. 2. Kirk Douglas chose the role for the fun of it. Kirk Douglas had absolutely nothing to prove when he signed onto the War Wagon. By 1967, he'd already done Spartacus Paths of Glory and Lonely Are the Brave. So why take on Lomax, a loud, sarcastic outlaw? Because Douglas wanted to have fun. He openly admitted that he loved playing characters who talked too much, laughed too loud, and pushed every scene just a little further than expected. Lomax gave him permission to be playful in a genre that often took itself too seriously. Douglas knew exactly how to balance humor with menace, and that's why Lomax steals nearly every scene he's in without ever overshadowing Wayne. 3. The Duke and Douglas were not close friends. On screen, John Wayne and Kirk Douglas have great chemistry. Off-screen, it was professional, polite, but not warm. The two men respected each other deeply, but had very different personalities. Wayne was quiet, reserved, and private. Douglas was energetic, talkative, and always thinking about the next creative move. They didn't hang out after shooting, and they didn't socialize much between takes. But that distance actually helped the movie. The slight tension between them translated perfectly into the uneasy partnership between Todd Jackson and Lomax. You can feel that they don't fully trust each other, and that feeling is real. 5. Horses were terrified of the wagon. One of the biggest problems nobody expected the horses. The wagon-sized noise and smell completely freaked them out. Horses are extremely sensitive animals, and many of them refused to go anywhere near it. Trainers had to spend weeks slowly introducing the horses to the wagon so they wouldn't panic on camera. Even then, some takes had to be scrapped because the horses bolted or froze in place. The crew joked that the real villain of the movie wasn't the outlaws or the cavalry, it was the wagon itself. 6. The movie was shot like a heist film. If the War Wagon feels different from other westerns, that's because it was structured like a heist movie. Instead of focusing on endless gunfights, the story is built around planning, timing, teamwork, and execution. Each character has a role. Each step matters. One mistake could ruin everything. That approach was still fairly new for westerns in the 1960s. You can see the influence of crime films more than traditional cowboy movies. That's why the film feels tight, focused, and almost modern compared to its peers. 7. The script was rewritten constantly. The original screenplay went through multiple rewrites during filming. Dialogue was adjusted daily. Scenes were shortened, extended, or completely reworked depending on how Wayne and Douglas played them. John Wayne had a strong instinct for what his character would and wouldn't say, and Kirk Douglas loved improvising small moments. Rather than fight, the director leaned into their strengths. Some of the movie's best lines weren't in the original script, they were born on set. 8. John Wayne played against his usual image. Todd Jackson isn't your typical John Wayne character. He's not loud, not cocky, and not eager to fight. He waits. He watches. He plans. Wayne intentionally toned down his presence to make Taw feel like a man who'd spent years in prison thinking about revenge. That quiet anger makes the character more dangerous than Wayne's usual bold heroes. It was a subtle performance, and some audiences at the time didn't fully appreciate it, but today it stands out as one of his more interesting roles. 9. Lomax was almost the main character. At one point during development, Lomax was nearly written as the central figure of the film. Early drafts leaned more heavily into his perspective and humor. But once Wayne signed on, the balance shifted. Instead of choosing one lead, the filmmakers decided to let the movie belong to both men. That decision made the War Wagon stronger. It's not about a hero and his sidekick, it's about two dangerous men temporarily needing each other. 10. The villains were intentionally underplayed. Unlike many westerns, the villains in the War Wagon aren't exaggerated or theatrical. They're cold, practical, and quietly cruel. This was a deliberate choice. The filmmakers wanted the focus to stay on the wagon and the robbery, not on cartoonish bad guys. The real enemy is the system, greed, corruption, and power protected by steel and guns. That thematic choice gives the movie more depth than it first appears to have. 11. The wagon represented corporate greed. The armored wagon wasn't just a plot device, it was a symbol. It represented the idea of wealth being locked away and guarded by violence. In many ways, it reflected growing concerns in the late 1960s about corporations, banks, and unchecked power. The idea that money could roll through the land surrounded by guns while ordinary people suffered wasn't accidental. The movie quietly critiques that imbalance without ever making a speech about it. 12. The film avoided romantic subplots on purpose. Most westerns of the era forced a love story into the narrative. The War Wagon didn't. The filmmakers intentionally avoided romance because it would distract from the core story. This is a movie about revenge, greed, and uneasy alliances, not love. That choice keeps the pacing tight and the focus sharp. It also makes the film feel more mature and grounded. 13. Kirk Douglas did many of his own stunts. Even in his 50s, Kirk Douglas insisted on doing many of his own stunts. Falls horseback, riding physical scuffles, Douglas wanted the audience to feel Lomax's reckless energy. The crew worried constantly about injuries, especially during scenes near the wagon. Douglas brushed it off, saying the danger helped him stay sharp. That physical commitment is one reason Lomax feels so alive on screen. 14. The movie was overshadowed by bigger westerns. 1967 was packed with major releases. The War Wagon had to compete with flashier, louder films. It didn't get the attention it deserved at the time, and critics were divided. Some thought it was too restrained. Others didn't know what to make of its humor. Over time, though, its reputation improved. Today, it's often described as a hidden gem, a western that rewards patience and close attention. 15. The ending was originally darker. Early versions of the script featured a much darker ending with heavier consequences and less satisfaction. Test audiences didn't respond well to it. They wanted resolution, not despair. The final ending still has weight, but it gives viewers a sense of earned closure. That balance helped the film age better than many grim westerns of the era. 16. John Wayne loved the wagon design. Despite initial skepticism, John Wayne became fascinated with the wagon. He spent hours inspecting it between takes, asking questions about its construction and mechanics. Wayne appreciated craftsmanship, and the wagon represented old-school practical film making at its finest. He later referred to it as one of the most impressive props he'd ever worked with. 17. The film influenced later heist westerns. You can see the War Wagon's DNA in later films that blend westerns with heist structures. Movies like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and even modern Western-inspired crime films borrow elements from its pacing and teamwork dynamic. While it didn't start the trend, it helped refine it. 18. Humor was used as a weapon. The humor in the War Wagon isn't there just to make you laugh, it's strategic. Lomax uses humor to disarm people, to hide his intentions, and to throw others off balance. That psychological layer makes his character more dangerous than a silent gunslinger. It's smart writing disguised as casual banter. 19. The film ages better than many westerns. Some westerns feel stiff or dated today. The War Wagon doesn't. Its themes, pacing, and character dynamics still work. The lack of melodrama helps it feel timeless. Modern audiences often respond better to it now than viewers did in 1967. 20. It's one of the last true old-school westerns. By the late 1960s, the western genre was changing fast. Gritty realism and revisionist storytelling were taking over. The War Wagon sits right at that transition point, polished like classic Hollywood, but smarter and more self-aware than earlier films. In many ways, it's a farewell to the traditional studio western made by legends who understood the genre inside and out. The War Wagon may not get mentioned alongside the biggest western classics, but it absolutely deserves your attention. It's clever, restrained, funny, and packed with quiet power. And the next time you watch it, you'll see more than just a wagon rolling through the desert. You'll see a movie that knew exactly what it was doing. If you enjoyed this deep dive into classic Hollywood, make sure to subscribe, and let me know which movie you want covered next.